Good morning, MPC. Welcome sa ating weekly Federalism press conference and welcome sa ating guest sa ating sukay kay DILG Assistant Secretary Jonathan Malaya at kay Atty. Randolph Parcasio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much to the Malacañang Press Corps for having us here again for the weekly briefing on the issue of federalism. But before I go to that, let me just take this opportunity to inform the public that on October 14, 2018, which is this coming Sunday, will be the Barangay Assembly Day. For the second semester of this year, the Department of Interior and Local Government issued a Memorandum Circular number 2018-151, which provides guidelines to all barangay officials on the activities to be undertaken before and during the Barangay Assembly Day. This memorandum circular is also for purposes of ensuring compliance and maximum participation of all barangays in this area of jurisdiction. So nananawagan po kami sa lahat ng ating mga barangay kapitan, particular na rin sa ating mga residente o constituents ng lahat ng barangay, na sana po ay makilahok tayo sa papalapit na Barangay Assembly Day ngayong linggo. Now, what is expected of our people? Well, what is expected to happen during that event? Unang-una po, the barangay captain must deliver a state of the barangay address. At dito po nakalagay yung kanyang nagawa na accomplishments for the first semester, yung kanyang financial report for the first semester, mga kanyang programa at proyekto, at yung mga ipinasa nilang bagong ordinansa sa barangay. Now, the DILG is also enjoining all barangays to also discuss DILG Dangerous Drugs Board Joint Memorandum Circular number 2018-01, which pertains to the creation of the Barangay Anti-Drug Abuse Council, the formulation of the action plan, and the allocation of a portion of the budget of the barangay for anti-illegal drugs programs, projects, and activities. Gusto rin po sana namin mapag-usapan sa papalapit na Barangay Assembly ay yung compliance ng barangay dun sa Barangay Full Disclosure Policy at kasama na rin yung implementasyon or execution ng Republic Act 10361 or yung Batas Kasambahay Law. Bakit po kailan mapag-usapan ito sa Barangay Assembly? Kasi po nakasaad sa batas na ito na bawat employer ay kailangan iparehistro ang kanyang mga empleyadong domestic workers in their employment in the Registry of Domestic Workers in the barangay. At karamihan pa po sa ating mga kababayan ay hindi pa nila alam na kailangan sila mag-comply dito sa batas na ito. Ngayon, gusto rin po sana namin mapag-usapan sa papalapit na Barangay Assembly na yung mga barangay properties and accountabilities na na-turn over mula dun sa nakaraang administrasyon paparating dito sa bagong administrasyon ng barangay. The properties and accountabilities must have been turned over and they must have complied with the inventory and turnover form which was provided by the DILG. And kung ano pa man pong mga issue na kailangan mapag-usapan tungkol sa peace and order ng barangay, disaster preparedness, and solid waste management ay kailangan din pong mapag-usapan sa Barangay Assembly. Hinihikayat po namin na lahat ng bagong halal na barangay officials, kasama na rin ang mga sangguniang kabataang officials, ay kailangan nandoon sa Barangay Assembly Day. And we request the local government units to undertake public awareness campaigns in their respective areas so that there will be maximum participation of all of our kababayan dito po sa napaparating na Barangay Assembly Day. Now, paano po kung hindi nagtawag ng Barangay Assembly ang kapitan? Pwede po siyang maharap sa isang kasong administratibo. In any barangay official who fails to conduct a Barangay Assembly, a complaint may be filed against him or her by any resident of the barangay or a concerned citizen or a governmental or NGO before the Sangguniang Panglungsod or Sangguniang Bayan concerned, pursuant to Section 61 of the Local Government Code. Inuulit ko po, ito pong Barangay Assembly Day ay hindi lamang pinapatawag dahil gustong DILG magkaroon nito. Ito po ay nakasaad sa batas sa Local Government Code. At kung sino man po ang hindi magpatawag ng Barangay Assembly Day ay pwedeng mapatawan ng kaso sa Sangguniang Panlungsod or Panlalawigan or sa Office of the Ombudsman. At kung ayaw man pong lumapit ng ating mga kababayan sa mga opisinang ito, pwede po silang lumapit sa DILG. At kami na po ang magsasampa ng kaso sa mga kapitan na hindi magpapatawag ng Barangay Assembly Day. So sana po, inihikayat po namin ng ating mga kababayan, sana po i-monitor nila ang compliance ng kanilang mga barangay officials dito sa importanteng activity na ito. Ngayon po, after this short discussion on Barangay Assembly, ako na po ipupunta sa topic ng ating briefing today, which is about latest updates on the federal system. Nung nakaraang araw po ay napag-usapan sa plenaryo ng Kongreso ang House version of the Federal Constitution. A committee report was prepared by the Committee on Constitutional Amendments and it was submitted on the floor and it was discussed in plenary. At meron pong mga komento at input sana ang DILG, kasama na rin po ang Consultative Commission created by the President. And we welcome the fact that in the plenary, na-desisyonan po ng House of Representatives na ibalik sa komite yung version na ipinasa ng Committee on Constitutional Amendments for them to put in perfecting amendments. At natutuwa po kami na ginawa ito ng ating mababang kapulungan kasi po sa tingin namin, we can further improve the draft federal constitution prepared by Congress. Therefore, in the process of undertaking perfecting amendments, while we welcome the decision of the House to return the Constitution to the committee for perfecting amendments, we continue to ask Congress to strengthen the federal character of the proposed federal charter and consider retaining the innovative justice and electoral features of the CONCOM's draft because this would strengthen our justice and electoral system in the country. Napansin po namin doon sa House version na yung pagtatatag or establishment ng mga federated regions or federal states ay open-ended and is dependent on the discretion of Congress. Sa tingin po namin, a true federal constitution already creates the federal government and the federated regions. And this process is not dependent on the approval of the central government. It is our opinion that to make the process of creating the federated regions or federal states entirely dependent on the central government goes against the very nature of a federal system. So, ito po ang aming panawagan sa ating Kongreso na ngayon may oportunidad na sila na linisin at mas pagandahin ang version ng Federal Constitution. Sana po ay mapagbigyan nila ang kahilingan ng CONCOM at iba pang mga grupo na wag nilang tanggalin ang term limits, ipasok nila ang isang self-executing anti-political dynasty provision, at sana mapagbigyan nila ang pakiusap na ma-retain yung mga proposed provisions ng CONCOM kagaya ng Federal Supreme Court, Constitutional Commissions, Federal Electoral Court, and a Federal Constitutional Court. We also recommend to Congress the other innovative provisions of the CONCOM's draft, which includes the proposal that the impeachment process must be a joint task of Congress and the judiciary, wherein Congress becomes an investigative body while the judiciary becomes the judge. It is our opinion that this will ensure a more professional and impartial system in resolving cases against impeachable officers. We'd also like to urge Congress to retain the proposed Federal Electoral Court for the speedy disposition of cases. Kadalasan po inaabot ng napakatagal na panahon bago madesisyonan with finality ang mga kaso sa eleksyon dahilan po sa ito ay nasa COMELEC at punong-puno na po ng COMELEC ng mga kaso at napakarami din pong kaso na nasa regular courts. This provision will declog the Commission on Elections, the regular courts, and the Supreme Court of numerous cases. And in fact, this will also replace the House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal, the Senate Electoral Tribunal, and the Presidential Electoral Tribunal. At the same time, this will relieve the Commission on Elections of its quasi-judicial functions. Ang ibig pong sabihin, ang COMELEC ay tututok na lamang sa napakahalagang trabaho na magparehistro ng mga botante at siguruhing nabibilang ng tama ang boto ng ating mga kababayan at hindi na po sila mag-exercise ng mga quasi-judicial functions in relation to election cases na nagpapatagal lamang sa pag-usad ng mga kasong ito. And of course, finally, we would like to also urge Congress to retain the proposed Federal Constitutional Court because it relieves the Supreme Court of constitutional cases and will contribute to an efficient justice system. As proposed by former Chief Justice Reynaldo Puno, the Federal Constitutional Court will also serve as an advisory body giving recommendations on laws enacted by Congress and orders made by the President to make sure that these laws and orders are constitutional or lawful. For this purpose, while we are happy that Congress has returned the draft federal constitution to the committee, we continue to urge it to retain the political and electoral reforms that are contained in the Consultative Committee's draft federal constitution. With that, I wish to turn over to Atty. Parcasio, who will discuss the other topics for discussion today.
Good morning. The proposed constitution drafted by the CONCOM provides for the establishment of regional governments. Earlier, Assistant Secretary Malaya mentioned about the activities undertaken by the barangays. No? The powers of the people through the barangays will be bolstered by the establishment of regional governments, who will in turn be primarily responsible for local government units. But before I would go into details on that, let me just discuss to you some salient features of the provisions on the proposed constitution establishing regional governments. Unlike the pending bill that is now in Congress, the establishment of federal regional governments or federated regions will be based on the Constitution. It will be the Constitution that will create it and not any through legislative enactment. By doing so, the regional government will be more stable and because it is based on constitutional provisions. Kung magtanong kayo ano bang itsura ng federated region, ito po ay isang microcosm ng national government sapagkat ito ay merong regional executive body, merong regional assembly, at meron ding feature on judiciary because it will have powers on establishment of regional courts. It will be headed by a regional governor with a deputy governor to be elected in tandem by the Legislative Assembly from among its members. But we saw to it that those who will be in the helm of power in the regional assembly should be college graduates and or will have some equivalent qualifications. No? Another feature is that sila po ay merong term na 4 years at yung assembly mismo will be presided by the deputy governor. Yung regional assembly po ay there are two kinds of selecting or electing members to the regional assembly. One is that one half of that will be elected by province and per highly urbanized city or independent chartered city. So each member of the federated regions will have one representative. And half of the composition of the regional assembly will be elected region-wide by proportional party representation. All of them should also be college graduate or having some equivalent qualifications. As I have said earlier, there will be a regional judiciary. In other words, the regional government will have its own regional judiciary system. Why is this so? This is important because there might be special courts in the region that will address the legal issues confronting our brothers who belong to the IP, indigenous peoples, as well as Muslims in some areas outside of the Bangsamoro where there are population of Muslim citizens. No? So in that case, the regional government can establish a regional judiciary system or regional court that will have or that will address issues arising from legislative enactments on rights of the indigenous peoples, as well as those covered by the Code of Muslim Personal Laws, which is now implemented nationwide. Another feature of a regional government is that within its territory, it will have exclusive powers. No? These exclusive powers will not be subjected to any limitations by the national legislature. That is why it is called exclusive. There are 15 exclusive powers of the regional government, and these are powers pertaining to socio-economic development planning, creation of sources of revenues, financial administration and management, tourism, investment and trade development, infrastructure, public utilities and public works, economic zones, land use and housing, justice system. It will have power over local government units, over business permits and licenses, municipal waters, indigenous people's rights and welfare, culture and language development, sports development, parks and recreation, and others, no? Which are not anymore exclusive powers. They pertain to the so-called shared powers. Shared power because some functions will be exercised both by national government or federal government and regional governments. And these are powers not exclusively given to either the federal government or the federated regions. They fall within the relative competences of the federal government and the regional government, which can be exercised jointly or separately. Now, of course, in case of dispute or conflict in the exercise of the federal government or national government and regional government, the federal government shall prevail. Now, the proposed constitution also provides for specific shared powers such as risk reduction, response to calamities, joint power on natural resources, on land use, on land reform, regulation and prohibition of monopolies, restraint of trade, or unfair competition. There are other shared powers that are implied, no, but are not specified in the draft. And these are shared powers on higher education, agriculture, health, infectious disease, social welfare, fishery, power generation and distribution, cooperatives, poverty alleviation, women, youth, senior citizens, differently abled, waste management, and others not falling within the exclusive powers of federal and regional government. Now, there are discussions and some critics that are targeting on the capability of regional governments. The proposed constitution have provided provisions on how and where the sources of revenues will be taken by regional governments. These are these are the powers that are granted to regional governments, which makes them self-sufficient because aside from their sources of revenues, there will be sharing between federal government and regional governments. And so therefore, regional government will have taxing power. It will have also power to make policies on taxation. Federal government has the power to levy and collect all taxes, duties, fees, charges, and other impositions except those granted to the federated regions. Federal government and federated regions shall ensure that taxation shall be uniform, equitable, and progressive, and that there shall be no double taxation. The specific revenues where regional governments can collect or shall have power are those pertaining to donors, documentary stamp and state taxes, real property tax, professional tax, franchise tax, games and amusement tax, environmental pollution and similar taxes, road users tax, vehicle registration fees, transport franchise fees, local taxes, and other taxes which may be granted by federal law. And then, aside from that, as I have said earlier, there will be sharing between national government or federal government in some major taxes, such as income tax, excise tax, value-added tax, and custom duties. In other words, while it will be the responsibility of federal governments to collect these taxes, the revenues raised from this major source of taxes will be shared 50-50 by national government or federal government in all federated regions. The 50% will be shared equally by all federated regions. Now, on top of all of this, some of the basic questions that are raised is that how will regional governments be effective, and as well as local government units be effective in governance under a decentralized form of government? One of the major features in the proposal in the draft constitution is a principle that shall guide national, regional, and local government units in their in prioritizing their economic thrusts, economic policies, and more especially in their annual budgets, such that the annual budget or annual budget ordinances of local government units and annual budget of regional governments as well as federal governments must comply with the new expanded demandable socio-economic rights. And these are rights of citizens on adequate food, on complete education, decent housing, universal and comprehensive health care, livelihood and employment opportunities. Another set of principles or guideline by which national government should seriously consider in all their plannings is a new right that will arise from this proposed constitution, which is a demandable environmental rights, where health, environment, and balanced ecology, clean air, water, soil surroundings, and compensation for damage to the environment are given or granted as demandable rights. With this, regional, federal, and LGUs, budgeting shall be based on these demandable rights. And one of the most, should I say, my most favorite feature in this proposal is that failure to prioritize these rights, rights that are called socioeconomic rights, shall, in all levels of government, shall give rise to a right of the citizens to sue the government by way of mandamus so that they shall align or realign their priorities, socioeconomic planning, and budget in accordance with these demandable rights. So these are some of the main features or highlights of regional and local governance under the CONCOM draft.
Thank you, Asek Jonathan Malaya and Attorney Parcasio. Questions, MPC? Catherine.
Good morning, sir. Sa inyo po both, do you think po still on track pa din po yung pagpasa ng proposed federal state charter? Because Attorney Macalintal is saying that both chambers would not even have enough time to discuss it. He also said that the process would involve substantial time and public funds, which will never be achieved till the next presidential polls in 2022. Is the government confident po na maipapasa po ito within the term of the president?
Your question is whether this will be passed within the term of the president. Of course, we have to take into consideration the initiative taken by the lower house. But given the fact that the elections are fast approaching, we still hope that this will be implemented before elections. However, if not, then the timetable under our draft is that this will be fully implemented within the term of the president. And one of the main features of this draft is that the incumbent president will not be a transitional president, because under the proposal, once a draft is ratified in Congress and approved by the people in a plebiscite, the incumbent president shall call for a special election for a transitional president, and there is a proviso provided that the incumbent president will not be qualified to run as such transitional president.
We are confident, no, that during the time of the term of the president, Rodrigo Duterte, this will pass. But of course, that's dependent on the approval of the people in the plebiscite. No? At the end of the day, it's going to be the decision of the people if this will pass. So, but to get to the plebiscite will depend on what mode we are going to utilize in amending the Constitution. At present, Congress, the House of Representatives, is taking the CON as Constituent Assembly track, which is why it went to the process of passing a committee report. It's now in the plenary, which has been returned back to the Committee on Constitutional Amendments. So the process has begun, and so far the House is concerned. Now, there may be some complications as to time. It's possible that there may not be enough time for discussions within this Congress, and because elections are already forthcoming next year, and we are now in the process of filing certificates of candidacy. Therefore, if this doesn't push through within this time frame, the next battle will be the next Congress. So in the next Congress, it's now a question of, do we proceed again with a Constituent Assembly track, or should we open up the doors to a constitutional convention? Either way, we are confident that Congress will make the right decision, and that the people should be given the opportunity to approve or disapprove a draft federal constitution before the term of the president ends in 2022.
Thank you, Asik Malaya. Question, MPC? Joseph?
Sir, comments, both of you. Yung pong, although restored na siya, no? Yung initially, the House version excluded the Vice President from the succession line and immediately proceeded to the Senate President. Your comment first on that?
Well, we are happy that Congress decided in plenary to return or reinstate the Vice President in the line of succession. No, it was explained that it was those who are pushing. It was explained that that proposal came from some sectors in the past because but just to explain, the reason why there was this idea that the vice president has no place in a federal system because the original plan was a parliamentary system. And in the parliamentary system, there is no vice president. But in this case, since we are maintaining the presidential system, in both the CONCOM draft and in the House draft, we are retaining the presidential system. Then we see no reason why we should remove the vice president from the line of succession. Therefore, I think the Congress made the right decision in reinstating the vice president in the line of succession.
Sir?
Yeah, I also believe that Congress decided correctly in restoring the line of succession. In this regard, in the draft of the Constitutional Committee, which is a presidential form of government, there is no doubt that it will be the vice president who will succeed the president.
Sir, second question. Regarding political dynasty, I understand in your version there are provisions against political dynasty. But of course, political reality is that it may not pass. Even the president said last night, when he arrived in Davao, na given the realities, mukhang medyo malabo talaga na may pasa yung political dynasty. My question is, how much of your version do you think will be retained in the House and Senate versions? Meaning, is your output going to be very useless as far as the final outcome of the federal constitution is concerned?
Well, we are going around the country and conducting consultations. And there is overwhelming support based on those consultations to once and for all settle the issue on political dynasty. And we are encouraging citizens to participate in the drafting of their own constitution, because we strongly believe that sovereignty resides in the people, in all government authority emanates from them. We even told them to scrutinize, if possible, revise or amend the draft that we made in the CONCOM, as well as all attempts to to change our constitution. It must be a constitution by the people. And now, as to whether or not this will finally be found in the final draft that will be ratified in Congress, the people should take the initiative, because Congress are their representatives, but they may not necessarily be, their position may not be necessarily be reflective of the demand, the strong demand for the dismantling of political dynasties. And so therefore, I would like to appeal to our congressman to take heed of this demand for political reforms. Otherwise, we will have a constitution that shall perpetuate this unjust and unfair system whereby a few families will dominate the political scene. Of course, this will be balanced by realities. There could be some innovation such that there could be, let us say, increase in the degree of relationship of those who would be qualified to run. It could be reduced to first degree so that others can also participate, other members of the family can participate. But the CONCOM is steadfast on its proposal that if we want to succeed in a federal form of government, then we must dismantle political dynasties.
But if Congress does away with it, you cannot do anything, no?
Of course, it will be Congress that will finally decide on that. But whether it will be reflective of the people's, growing demand that should be seriously considered.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Rose?
I-follow up ko lang po, sir, yun pong question about dun sa anti-political dynasty. How do we encourage people to support the anti-political dynasty provision kung mismong ang Pangulo po ay hindi naniniwala na maipapasa yun sa Kongreso?
Well, of course, I come from Davao City. There are, even during the deliberations in the CONCOM, I say that there are good dynasties and bad dynasties. Davao City would be, of course, an exception to the ills of political dynasties, because we have a good dynasty in Davao. But that is an exception to the rule. Ewan ko kung yung sinabi ng Pangulo na that will not pass in Congress, if he believes that the rightfulness, the righteousness, the correctness of that proposal. I think he just stated that it might not pass Congress. But I don't know. I have not heard his statement. I did not say that it is wrong. No, it may not pass Congress, but I have not heard that he said that it is wrong. Because when we submitted the draft to him, he said he agrees with the draft.
Follow-up, Rose?
Basahin ko lang po kasi yung pong transcript nung sinabi ni Pangulo. Pero meron pa nga anti-dynasty dyan na hindi mapasa-pasa. Hindi yan mapapasa, kaya hindi man papayag si Maylene dyan. Hindi na yan mapapasa, maniwala ka. So, yun po yung statement ni Pangulo last night. And yung umiiral din po kasi na sistema sa ngayon na yung mga tao ay talagang lumalapit po sa mga clans. Kumbaga, nakadepende po sa mga clans.
Well, wala pa tayong masasabi dyan sa statement ng President. Wala naman siyang sinasabi na mali. Ang sinabi niya lang, hindi maipasa. Dahil sa nature ng Kongreso. Pag tingnan mo ng Kongreso, 90% dyan ay galing sa mga dynasties. So how could they, that is according to statistics, no? There was a study presented to us during our deliberations, and 90% of members of Congress come from dynasties. We would like to change effectiveness in governance. And so therefore, this issue on political dynasties should be seriously considered. Otherwise, if we have a federal form of government, if it will still be dominated by political dynasties, I don't think that it will be effective and it will succeed to address issues on effective delivery of public services, justice, and other related issues.
Thank you, Joyce. Any more question? Asik Malaya, balikan ko lang yung kanina, yung sinabi nyo tungkol doon sa recommendation nyo tungkol sa alisina sa COMELEC, yung pagtutok sa mga electoral protest.
Yes.
Paano magiging setup noon na Asik Malaya? At saka kung sakasakaling ma-aprobahan nyo doon sa proposal nyo, gaano katagal yung itatagal ng bago makapaglabas ng resolusyon sa isang electoral protest?
Komplikado kasi yung ating sistema ng electoral protest, no? May mga kaso na fina-file sa regular courts, RTC. May mga kaso naman if it refers to the qualifications and membership in Congress, no? At ito'y pumupunta sa House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal. At yung Senate naman may sariling Senate Electoral Tribunal. At pagprotesta naman sa Vice President or President, Supreme Court through the Presidential Electoral Tribunal. At nakikita naman natin yung yung tagal ng pag-usad, like dito sa protesta sa pagka-Vice President, because ang gumagawa ay mismong ang Supreme Court, napakatagal bago matapos ang mga protesta. At sa House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal naman, madami ng pagkakataon, isang session day na lang ang ipinasok nung nanalong congressman, yung supposedly. The reason for this is because ang dami-daming mga napakadaming kaso At yung sistema natin hindi maganda. Now, again, the COMELEC is also saddled by electoral protest. At ang COMELEC ay hindi niya malaman kung ano ba talaga ang trabaho niya kasi in one instance, he is a quasi-judicial entity deciding electoral protest at on the other instance, siya naman yung nagpapatakbo ng ating mga halalan. Kaya madalas, pagkausap natin ng COMELEC, tinatanong natin sila tungkol sa ano ba opinion nila. Sinasabi nila, ayaw namin mag-opinion dyan kasi kami rin naman ang magdidesisyon tungkol dyan later. So, it's very complicated. So, maganda po itong naging proposal ng CONCOM na linisin yung sistema at alisin sa mga ahensyang ito ang mga trabaho in so far as election protests are concerned at ilagay sa isang body which is the Federal Electoral Court. And we feel that this kind of judicial reform will speed up the disposition of electoral cases because it will declog the courts of election protests and election contests.
Thank you, Asik Malaya. Would you like to add something,
Yep,
Atty. Parcasio?
Yung sa proposal po ng CONCOM ay may mga deadlines, no? Yung pag-decide ng mga cases. 2 years sa mga cases in the high courts, yung time frame to decide cases is 2 years from filing of the petition. Yun naman sa petition on the part of collegiate courts, they only have 1 year to decide, no, from the filing of the petition. And then 3 months from submission of the cases for decision in trial courts. In other words, may mga deadlines, no. Meron din akong hinahandle na kaso nung una na yung nanalo sa election ay nanalo siya 3 days before election. At maraming cases na ganon. Meron namang namamatay na lang, hindi pa na-decide yung election cases. So in order to avoid this, we have to distribute cases to different appropriate courts, which we call 4 higher courts in the new constitution.
Thank you, Atty. Parcasio. Any more question? Additional, sir?
Wala. Well, kung magtatapos na tayo, hihikayatin ko lang ating mga kababayan, no? Yung Barangay Assembly Day ngayong October 14, the DILG is really encouraging everyone. Maximum participation po ng lahat ng ating mga barangay para sa Barangay Assembly.
Asik, briefly lang siguro, may issue in connection sa filing of COCs ngayon. May controversy ngayon doon sa gawin ng Makati, di ba? That sinasabi Junjun Binay can no longer run as mayor. As far as the DILG is concerned, sir, ano ba talaga yung status? Can it still run or hindi na?
Ikaw talaga, in-on-the-spot mo ako. Actually, inaaral na po namin yung ngayong araw kasi pumutok yung issue kagabi na supposedly may perpetual disqualification si former Mayor Junjun Binay. No? Yung kasi pong decision na yan supposedly came from the Ombudsman. But I understand that there was an appeal made. So if there was an appeal made to the courts, hindi pa po final and executory. Okay. But I don't wanna speak with finality here kasi nga I've asked my staff already to check with our records kung meron pa talagang perpetual disqualification na final and executory si Mayor Junjun Binay.
Thank you, Asik.
I don't have the data. I don't have the data right now because I was rushing here for the federalism. But we will I've already asked my staff to check kung meron nga bang final kasi if the ombudsman had that penalty against him and he filed an appeal, he elevated it to the Court of Appeals, no? Ibig sabihin, hindi pa yun final and executory and he can still run. But I do not have the facts right now so I cannot speak with finality.
Thank you, Asik Malaya. MPC, Rose, please.
Hingi lang po kami ng latest kasi kagabi natanong din si Pangulo kung willing siyang i-release yung pong mga narco-politicians list. So ano po yung latest na stand ng DILG? Pinupursu pa rin ba nating i-release yun? Or paano natin ma-inform yung taong bayan about these people na hindi naman yan discreet? I mean, yun po.
Well, ang naging pronouncement po ni Secretary Eduardo Año is that we are going to release the list of all of those narco politicians. And we are also going to forward to the Commission on Elections all of those lists the narco politicians and those with cases to the Commission on Elections for their proper disposition. Nasa ano na po yun? Nasa Commission on Elections na po kung paano nila yun, how they will handle that concern.
So may copy po ang Commission on Elections, pero nasa kanila yung decision kung anong gagawin dun sa listahan.
We have not yet forwarded to them. We have not yet forwarded kasi this is simply the period of filing of certificates of candidacy. So in the foreseeable future, as pronounced by Secretary Eduardo Año, we will forward to the Commission on Elections the list, and we will leave it to the Commission on Elections on how to dispose of this.
Pero sir, di ba, pwede lang hindi tanggapin yung filing ng candidacy kapag ka meron ng final na resolution sa isang kaso. So, hindi pa naman nakasuhan tong mga sinasabing narco-politicians. So, ano yung gusto nyong maging action ng COMELEC in particular pag binigay nyo sa kanila yung list?
We will leave it now to the COMELEC, no? Kasi nasa kanila na ngayon kung anong gusto nilang gawin doon. Basta kami, insofar as DILG is concerned, we have this list, we forward it to them, and we will leave it to them how they will dispose of it.
Sir, anong action, by forwarding it to the COMELEC, anong point? What action are you going to expect from the COMELEC?
Well, Secretary Año mentioned this, that we would want them to be disqualified, no? But there are some legal impediments kasi, no? As mentioned already by some election lawyers. So, insofar as we're concerned, we would like the public to be informed of the list. We would like them to know that these are those with pending cases. Now, if they are to be disqualified or not, that's no longer the call of the department. It's now the call of the Commission on Elections.
Okay. Sige.
You said foreseeable future. Are we talking about during this period of filing and then right before the elections in May?
I think after the filing.
Thank you, Joseph.
Pwede mong follow up? Sir, kung walang action ng COMELEC dun sa list, anong next step ng DILG?
I think we'll cross the bridge when we get there. Kasi, this is a very volatile situation. Ang naging decision namin nung nakaraang election for barangay was we talked with PDEA and we released the list to the public. No, we don't know if we will also do it this time. We will have to check first with the President kung ano yung kanyang decision on this. During the last time we released that list, we got a approval from the Office of the President prior to doing so.
Thank you, Asek. Joyce, siguro last two questions. Kasi siya na Asek, ha?
Ikaw kasi.
Asek, sabi nyo hindi nyo pa na-forward yung list. Kailan po ninyo target ibigay yung list sa COMELEC?
After the filing of COCs. During the campaign period, yes.
Okay. Bakit yun po yung timing?
After the filing.
Why only after the filing, sir?
We're still compiling. Kasi yung listahan po kasi hindi naman po yan open-ended copy. The PDEA list it comes from PDEA. It's not the DILG list. The PDEA is the repository of the narco list. It's not us. What happens is all of the government agencies contribute to this list, and it's PDEA that verifies and validates the list. So we will have to wait first for PDEA to give us the final list, and then we will make that decision in consultation with the Office of the President.
Anong status, sir, ng mga nandoon sa list? Under investigation pa din?
Yes.
Case build-up?
Yes,
Okay.
case build-up.
Then you mentioned, sir, kanina na one of your reasons why you want to give a list to the COMELEC is you want the public to know about the list. Why not just make a press conference or give out the copies directly to the media?
Well, again, the purpose is hopefully for the COMELEC to disqualify them from running. However, as I said, there may be some legal impediments. So, if the COMELEC tells us that officially, that we cannot proceed, we cannot grant your request, the DILG, because there are some legal issues insofar as constitutionality is concerned, then we will reassess what we need to do. Perhaps we may release the list to the public, just like what we did during the last barangay elections. But again, I cannot speak with finality because we will have to consult with the Office of the President.
Sir, hindi pa final yung list, no? So wala pa tayong roughly number of politicians in the list?
Yes.
And the highest position in the list?
Yes, we don't. And I don't have that data also right now because this press con was about federalism.
Okay.
We also talk about Boracay.
Okay. MPC, last question.
So
one
legal
pa.
basis for disqualifying these narco politicians. Anong magiging legal basis natin?
Hindi, it's just our proposal. No, it's just our proposal.
If you want them disqualified, I'm sure you have ways to make them disqualified.
Hindi naman siguro. We cannot invent things
So
just
at
for
the
them
very
to
minimum,
disqualify.
this is just a libelous statement from the DILG, diba? If you're going to just name them and then make it up to the leave it to the COMELEC to do whatever, diba? Paano nila i-disqualify yun? On the basis of, intelligence...
not necessarily libelous statements because we have not named them anyway. So we are just going to provide this list to the Commission on Elections, and we hope that the Commission on Elections will be able to find a legal basis.
You're going to give the COMELEC a problem, right? I mean, from your level, you don't know what to do with this list, and then you give it to the COMELEC, and then up to them to do whatever.
You know, both agencies have their own mandates. The mandate of the DILG is to ensure that we elect good officials who are able to perform their mandate, who are not in any way connected with drugs, no? And the mandate of the COMELEC, on the other hand, is for them to make sure that only those who are deserving should be allowed to run. So we are taking this from our position. Now, we forward it to COMELEC. COMELEC will take a look at it. If COMELEC says, I'm sorry, DILG, we cannot grant your request because there may be some legal issues, then we will take it at that. We will respect whatever decision the COMELEC does.
So on your level, limiting it just to the DILG, do you think the COMELEC can disqualify these narco-politicians based on your information?
We would rather say hope. We hope that the COMELEC will disqualify them.
Okay. Thank you, MPC. Thank you so much, DILG Assistant Secretary Jonathan Malaya and Attorney Randolph Parcasio. Let's go back to the main studios of Radyo Pilipinas and PTV.